Hello, Mike Peacock.
Hey, hello, Marty Durden, and hello, everybody else that's tuning in to Step Up, Make a Difference, the podcast. I'm Mike Peacock with my man, Marty Durden. And Marty, it's getting kind of cold outside. I'm sure it's pretty cold already up where you are in the northern part of the state, but give us a quick weather update on what's going on around you right now.
Yeah, we had some ice this morning. It's sort of melted now, but we expect some sleet and rain tonight, and it may be ugly. Most schools have called off school tomorrow, so I figured we'll just bunker down for another day. But as the golf coach at Shorter, I don't know when we're going to get to practice.
I understand. Well, we got a treat today. Older friend of yours, but an old friend of mine, and a man that everybody around our area knows, and really everybody around the state of Georgia and over into East Central Alabama knows this gentleman, and he's been instrumental in the world of Fellowship of Christian Athletes in this region and in the state of Georgia. And it is an honor to get to have him on the podcast today and get to talk with him. And that is Mr. Lamar Weaver. And look, there he is. He just shows up when we says his name. It's just, he's got star power. He just pops up as soon as we say his name. Welcome, Lamar.
I appreciate you guys just for the opportunity to be here with you.
I don't know of a person in Georgia that's more well respected by the powers that be in athletics than Lamar Weaver. And you've done something for everybody to make their life better, to teach them something, to help them at a crucial time. And I think you're the perfect guest for what we're trying to promote in Step Up.
Well, thank you, Marty. You're my inspiration. You and David Spitzmiller are the reason I got to do FCA to begin with. So I'd love to share that story sometime, but wouldn't be here without you and Spitz. It was a life-changing event for me. It really was, has been, and made the last 20 years of my life something really special that wouldn't have happened without you guys, without God intervening.
Absolutely. And guys, before we get started talking to Lamar, and I don't want to be a downer on this, but we need to acknowledge something that has taken place in the last 24 hours here in our area. And that is the unfortunate news that we all got, that we lost another one of our young coaches in our area to a tragic accident last night. And that is Tony Dimitri. He was formerly at Jordan, and he's been at Harris County, and a young man who's I met him a few times and was just a tremendous young man. And unfortunately, tragic accident last night, and he lost his life in that. And that whole community, I tell you, Harris County High School has had some tough things happen to them in the last 5 or 6 years. And it is another blow to them and their staff and their school family and their community up there to get this news and to have this happen right here in the middle of the year. But we just want to lift our thoughts and prayers up to, first of all, Coach Dimitri's family. Has kids and a wife, and just first of all their family and everybody involved in their family. And then the Harris County High School family, and then basically the entire area of the Columbus and Harris County area, because he touched a lot of lives in both locales. And, it's hard to go through this. It's hard to fathom this happening. And I just saw a post from Rick Beach, who's one of our Georgia Alabama Sports Live and Kudzu Sports guys with Harris County. And he said, it still just doesn't seem real. And I know that feeling. All of us know that feeling when you get news like that. It just doesn't seem like it ought to be happening. And so we just want to lift up our prayers and our support for everybody that's involved, and especially to Coach Dimitri's family.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful family. His brother John coaches softball down at Marion County, and I actually played baseball with his dad, Anthony, at Jordan back in '71. Just a great family. It's a tough loss.
Yes, they're a great bunch of folks. I mean, that whole family left their mark. We think of them as baseball, first they're all great baseball coaches, but they're much more than that. Just fine people. And as you said, they touched a lot of lives. So our prayers for the Dimitri family, and I know we'll see him again one day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and other than that, having to deal with that shocking news today, it is, we're having to deal with a lot of weather. And this time of year, it's volatile here in the South. If you don't like the weather, just hang around a little while, and there may be a day where you get three or four seasons in one day. You never know when you're around here, but I know that there's a dividing line, and down here in Lamar, where you and I are, we're getting a lot of rain and not expected to get a whole lot else. But not far above us, the temperatures are going to be more extreme. The front's coming through. There's going to be more precipitation, and there's a chance that there's going to be ice and snow, and it's already affecting school systems and work days and everything else tomorrow. I know Montgomery's had some severe weather this afternoon with high winds and trees down and different things like that. So there's a whole lot going on weather-wise, and we also need to keep everybody that's touched by this in our prayers as well, and just ask that God put his protection around everybody and have everybody be smart. A lot of times people, when this is going on, they like to get out and explore a little bit, and this is not the time to get out and explore. It is the time to hole up with your family, play some board games, watch some movies, and hopefully your power don't go off, and enjoy this as some together time. But so let's get back now to talking with Lamar Weaver. Lamar, we always ask our guests, Marty and I, just to kind of go back through the timeline of your life a little bit, and just tell us about how you grew up, and basically how you got connected with athletics and how things worked out in your life for you to end up with FCA. You mentioned Marty and David Spitzmiller a few minutes ago. Just kind of tell us the story of, in a nutshell, of Lamar Weaver coming forward in your life and how you got involved in everything with that.
Okay, some people will argue I hadn't grown up yet, but I did grow up in Bibb City, in a textile town, and parents divorced when I was about 11, remarried when I was 12. So I spent my middle school and high school years in Berlin and Würzburg, Germany, as an Army brat. Couldn't wait to get home because my 1971 Jordan High School team won state championship without me. So I couldn't wait to get back, but it was over by the time I got back. But anyway, I came back and went to Columbus College and got my accounting degree and started working at Synovus and had a really good career going, 22 years there. And something really life-altering happened in the mid-'90s. I lost my mother in '94, my dad in '95. Two favorite uncles the next 2 years and a favorite favorite cousin the year after that. And I'm really searching hard about really praying to God what's about meaning, look for meaning in my life, for purpose in my life. And somebody invited me at church to walk to Emmaus. And I went on this men's retreat, and I've got a clear message from God that he has something better planned for me. It turned out to be teaching in middle school. So I left Synovus early. They let me take an early retirement, even though I wasn't of age yet. And so I went back to Columbus State and got my middle school certification. And the position at St. Luke, they had were just opening up the middle school there, and I was one of 3 teachers to help open that middle school up, and with 37 students, and now they're running strong. But anyway, I ended up being an athletic director, coached multiple sports, taught 6 classes a day for 7 years, and it was a wonderful job. I mean, it's a dream job where you get to see your kids during the day in the classroom, but also on the basketball court or the softball field after school, and just you really get to know them well and their families, and it was a great job. But after Sydney graduated from our youngest daughter graduated from St. Luke, I felt the need, the urge to go on, and little did I know that David Spitzmiller would invite me to an FCA banquet in February of probably 2011, Marty, when you had Larry Mize and Wayne Dickens and Tim Hudson over there at Winbrook, and I show up, and you announce at the end of the event that you were hiring a full-time area director for FCA. And anyway, I called Spitzmiller and said, I wish you'd have told me about it. He said, well, we hadn't interviewed yet. And he said, I know you coach and everything else, so didn't think you'd be interested anyway. You end up meeting with you guys the following Sunday, Marty, and you guys hired me a week later, and that's when my life changed. But it all started with that walk to Emmaus, where God planted this seed in my heart that he had something better. I never thought for a minute that I would leave Synovus for any reason. I had a great career there. But a missions trip to Honduras in 1998, I learned what sports ministry was. I went down there with 6 soccer balls, and I was the soccer king of the world for those kids down there. And they loved, I really learned what sports ministry was, and I didn't even know what sports ministry. I didn't realize I was doing sports ministry, but I was down there doing it. And they basically, the crew said, we'll take care of the construction. You just go play soccer with the kids. And that's what I did while I was down there mostly. But anyway, when FCA came along, Marty left town, so he moved. Thank Marty, but I called Marty multiple times and picked his brain because I really was overwhelmed by the task at hand. I really felt inadequate. I felt like I just unqualified for it. And I went to a senior pastor, Scott Tucker at St. Mark, and I said, Scott, what do I do, man? I'm in over my head. It's too big for me. It's too big for me. And he said something that I'll never forget. He said, God doesn't always call the qualified, but he does qualify the call. No, he doesn't always qualify the called, but he calls. No, let me give my correction.
Let me help you. He doesn't always call the qualified. He qualifies the called.
Yeah, that's it.
There you go.
Qualified, but he does qualify the call. And so anyway, he qualified me by putting me around some great people. Marty left a wonderful board of directors for our organization. We expanded it with some really, really great people as well. And so that fulfilled the support group. We were able to hire a couple of people, one in LaGrange and a couple in Columbus over the couple of years. And the ministry just kind of took off. And I just owe everything to Marty and Spitzmiller. I really owe everything to God for giving me that opportunity. He took me out of a business environment and put me in a world where I could really add meaning to my life, but really, really do God's work. I was doing God's work, as you well know, Mike, at St. Luke. We were doing God's work and really impacting lives. And it's wonderful to see the kids that we taught back in those days and see them getting married and having kids now and raising families and stuff. And very, very fulfilling to do that. But in the world of FCA, the scope is so much bigger. I mean, they're in over 100 countries, the largest sports ministry in the world. We were responsible, Marty, when you were. Marty just passed the baton to me. Marty and Spitz Miller and his crew laid all the groundwork for what I did. So he liked to give me the credit for all this stuff, but he laid all the foundation for all that, and we just took and ran with it. And God blessed it. He blessed us with wonderful donors, wonderful friends, wonderful relationships in the community. My work at the bank helped me administratively. My coaching and athletic director experience helped me with the schools. So I just felt like I coached for 11 years, mostly softball, but some middle school sports, and I just felt like God had prepared me all my life for that one job, and I still believe that to this day. But it was a true blessing. I mean, just total life turnaround. I mean, I had a good life, but it turned it into something that was so meaningful that I can't even hardly describe it. But Marty, I love you, man, and you, Spitz Miller, and I've told you 100 times, but it wouldn't have happened without you guys. But it was all part of God's plan all along. When I left Synovus, everybody like, did you get fired or, you in trouble or what? I said, no, just God's called me to do this. And I went with it, and I never looked back. And, I mean, here we are. So it's been a good life. I'm still involved with the CSU softball team. Still their chaplain. We do a Bible study with the girls every week. And the coach and I are very close friends, and we talk softball and life. And I'll just say this, he got baptized last August. He gave his life to Christ last August, got baptized in September, and it's amazing what God's doing with that on that campus and with him. Just the way that he conducts himself and the way he loves, he just coaches different. He coaches different. He's a different person, and it's just amazing what God's doing. So
it's truly amazing. When I was a ninth grader in high school, I was a new kid at a school, Lamar High School. Never heard of FCA in my life. And a guy named Linwood Mock, my coach, came up to me in PE class and said, "Hey, we're going to start an FCA." And I said, "Coach, what's FCA?" And he said, "Why don't you just come tomorrow morning and you'll see." And there in the gym at Bainbridge High School, we started an FCA. I joined that day. That was September of 66, maybe, August of 66. And I've been a member of FCA ever since. And how it's changed my life is it's beyond description. The pastors in my life couldn't reach me. They didn't reach me, but coaches did. And it was coaches that got to me and got me started in my Christian walk. And I thank God for FCA. I wouldn't be sitting here. I don't know what I would have done. But it's just amazing how God worked in your life, my life, our lives overlaid on Mike. Here we are, three guys. Mm-hmm. We're on the same program now with the same message. So I thank God for you, Lamar. You took FCA to a height and to a level that would have never happened had you not been there. Your business acumen and your contacts in the business world and just the kind of person you are, you made FCA relevant. And it's just, there's no telling how many lives have been affected because of FCA in the Columbus area, because of the work that God has blessed as FCA. I'm blown away by it every time I think it. You and I both could start telling stories that we could go on forever. Maybe our next show, maybe that's exactly what we need to do.
Well, maybe you should tell the story of how it all got started with that basketball camp at CSU and all the lives that were impacted there. That really was the emphasis, wasn't it, for getting this thing rolling?
Yeah, that was amazing. In fact, we we had that thing for about 8 or 10 years, and we had 1,100 kids, 1,100 girls, 1,100 boys who came to that every summer. It was huge. And I remember when I was called away to go to Houston, Texas to Presbyterian. And I know we needed to raise a little money before I left. And so we called a meeting with some potential donors down at Steve Butler's office down, and down on the river down there. And we had a little supper, and I got up and talked about 5 minutes. And I had saved all of the decision cards, that when kids accept Christ, rededicate their life, all those things. And there were 900 of them, a little over 900 lives. And so I put them in a bucket and laid it out there. And I said, you want to know why you should give to this ministry? Here's 900 reasons. Mm-hmm. And all the money just came in. FCA speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm. It really does. Yeah. My first experience with FCA was, I want to say, about 8th or 9th grade in Central Alabama. And we started a chapter. Our school started a chapter and got going with that. And I was involved in it all the way through high school, went to a couple of camps when I was in high school, and wasn't as involved in college. But then when I started working and became a coach, I ended up being the FCA leader or the huddle leader at 3 different schools in Alabama before we moved to Georgia. And I met you guys when I was at Columbus State. But when I was a high school coach in Alabama, I ended up being the guy who took over as the huddle leader at 3 different schools in Alabama. And we did a lot of great things. And FCA is just tremendous organization. But I want to stop right here real quick, Lamar, with you.
Yeah.
And all of us, we've been remiss about this a little bit, Marty, when we've had guests on, and that is mentioning your personal support system, namely your wife and family. And we don't get guys, when we've had them on here, we don't get guys to talk enough about the wife, the role the wife plays in success of us as coaches and administrators and things like that. So I want you to tell us about your wife and how important her support has been through this whole process with you. And, each of us are thankful that we've got a tremendous wife that has supported us.
We are. I mean, it's critical. It's critical. I don't know where to start, Mike. She's my soulmate. She's my mentor. I mean, she keeps me on track. She's a lot smarter than I am, much better looking than I am, but very organized. And I don't know, she was on our board, and we would talk FCA before meetings, after meetings. Anything I needed to bounce off of anybody, it was her. If I was sending out an important communication, I'd always get her feedback on it. I mean, I couldn't have done it without her. Love her to death, but she's just been right there with me every step of the way, encouraging me. At times, we all have ups and downs, and there were times where I'm like, I'm not sure I'm made for this, and she would pick me back up and dust me off. But no, I really can't say enough about her. She's been there. She was in one encouraging me when I felt the calling to leave. She was all behind that. She's a smart person, but she loves me so much. She can tolerate me through a lot of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I really, because I got one the same way. And now tell us her name. So
we do have a younger daughter.
Yeah, we do. You do.
We do. She, during those camp years before she went off to college, she'd be there at the golf camp and the softball camp and helping us with different things too. And so I'm gonna give her throw a little credit toward her too for being there while.
And she played collegiate golf, right?
She did up at Berry College, yeah.
Berry College, yep. And your wife was also athletic. Am I right about that?
Yeah, she's in the CSU Hall of Fame for softball.
Yeah, for softball. Yep.
Chattahoochee Valley Hall of Fame. She's the star of the family, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm just the average guy that married up, you know.
I hear you. And you and I, you mentioned it briefly just a little bit before, but you and I have something really kind of cool in common. Is that we both taught middle school at St. Luke. You were there, I think, 7 years in the early days of the middle school, as you said. And then I was there from 2018, I guess, 19 to 21 or 2021, I guess, was my 3 years there. And as you said, it is so cool to see these kids and what they're doing. And some of them are getting ready already to graduate college. My first group there, you know, they're getting on up toward graduation in college. And, you know, it is pretty soon they'll be starting to get married and do things like that. And it's just it's amazing to see that. But we got to be involved in that. And that brought me back into the coaching and athletics world headlong after I'd been away for about 7 years when I left CSU, and I'd been doing sales. I'd been involved in it a little bit because I was a team sales rep, and I saw coaches as my daily work every day. But I just saw them as a visitor and not as a participant so much. And so it is. It was kind of cool to be back in that. Like you said, it was a total God thing. You know, to be able to get that and to get back in there and it was just an amazing thing. And you know, I was able to do that for 3 years at St. Luke and 2 years at Calvary. And you know, I'm on a little different path right now, but you know, always got my eyes open about what God, you know, what doors God may open. But right now, I guess I'm where He needs me to be, and I'm out there every day trying to do the job that I do, all to His glory. But and if you notice, folks, that Marty disappeared, he hopefully will be back. I think the weather is affecting his internet signal at his house, and I don't know if it has affected the communication lines, but Lamar, we're going to carry on, and we're going to, if Marty can get back on, he'll pop back on here. But we're going to carry on and keep going. Talk about, let's go back and talk about the early time when you were with FCA. And you said, and rightfully so, that Marty laid a lot of groundwork. Marty and Mike Green and some of those folks that were before you with FCA and laid some groundwork. And then Marty was, you know, called to go to Houston. And when he left, you know, you became the area director. And God took that thing and you guys directed you guys, and you were willing to follow. And FCA has boomed since then. But just talk about some of the stories that made FCA what it is in the Chattahoochee Valley today, in this area today, and how it got to be the success that it is.
Okay, I mean, there's really 4 facets of FCA. It's coaches, camps, community, and campuses. And so my first focus was campuses, getting out to all the different schools and trying to find, and it was God, it was nothing I was doing. God took me to the right people, but finding one coach or one teacher on every campus that loved the Lord and wanted to use that platform to reach their students. So just school by school, middle school, high school, and college, just went spot to spot and locating that person. That's when the campus huddles started popping up. And then you know, coach is a big facet of the ministry as well. Billy Graham said a coach will impact more people in 1 year than the average person will in an entire lifetime. So, when you get a coach involved, that's when he gets the team involved. And so we were able to make, this whole ministry, Mike, as you well know, and Marty, is based on relationships. And in the ministry of sports ministry, one of the key words is presence. You have to be present. You have to go and visit these people and get to know them and spend time with them and get comfortable in their environment, And so I've had to go to different schools, North Columbus, South Columbus, private schools, and, sit in coaches' offices and just chew the fat and build relationships. And that's when things start happening. So, I owe it all to God that he just opened those doors. And like I said, practically every school we went to, somebody stepped up and took the lead on the ownership of a huddle for that particular campus. Do I keep going, Mike?
Yeah, just keep going. I think everybody can hear us. I think we're trying to get Marty fed back in. So, yeah. There he is. Look at that.
Yes, hey, Marty.
Yeah, we're having some bad weather here, man.
We're talking about campuses, Marty, how you just go one campus at a time and look for that man of God or woman of God that wanted to use the platform of sports called FCA to make a difference on their campus. And it really wasn't hard to do. I mean, it's about every school we went to, somebody stepped up. Sometimes multiple people did. And then it poured over into, once you got a huddle going, it poured over into a coach would start getting involved. Next thing you know, they want somebody to come speak to their team and that sort of stuff. And it just kind of grows from there. But like I said, Marty, the whole key is relationships. You got to go there. You got to build trust. You got to gain respect, and you got to be present. You have to show up. And I remember some campuses, Marty, I'd go out there and coaches didn't really acknowledge I was even in the room. And I'd go back a month later and, didn't really acknowledge I was in the room. And I go back a month later and they start talking to me. And then a month later, they say a little bit more. And next thing you know, when you coming back, or if I miss a couple months, they say, where you been? I'm like, okay, then we're getting somewhere then. So it's relationships and doing if you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. You got to do it and building trust. And that's where the respect comes in. That's where so anyway, that's to me, that is the whole thing is just being present. You gotta go to them. You got to get comfortable in their environment, and they got to know. I'll just share a story. I won't say what school it was, but when I first started, Marty, you had just moved out to Houston, and I go to a local high school, and I think, well, go bearing gifts. So I took a Bible and a T-shirt or something to a principal of one of our local schools, and he looked me dead in the eye and he said, Lamar, he said, you're not going to do like the last guy that came in here, are you? And I said, what's that, Mr. So-and-so? And he said, well, he came in and brought me a Bible and he left and never saw him again. So that was an early lesson that if you're gonna go to try to establish a relationship, you better come back. You better show up. And
You do.
Our most famous, we have FCA has an annual theme, and the best one we ever had in my mind was "Let's Go," and it was about the Great Commission. You got to go. You got to meet them where they are. You got to be comfortable in where they are, and just sit, and just work on that relationship. And so that's the biggest lesson I learned early was come back. Not a one-time thing. You're not going to show up and woo them with a Bible and a T-shirt, and they're going to go do what you want them to do. It's a partnership. I mean, it's a partnership.
And there's so many coaches that are willing that you just never, until you get there, you just really don't know the depth of their close relationship with Christ. And then I learned so many people in FCA, and it was always somebody calling and asking, "Can you get me Bibles or something?" Lamar, I think you were in the one about one time we had some kind of supper in the lobby of CSU in the Lumpkin Center, and the speaker was Dr. Brad Hicks of Wimbrook, and he was speaking to there were four soccer teams: CSU, the China international team, and two other, maybe Canada and somebody else, and they were on the campus there. And so when it was over, the coach from China came up to me, and we had just gotten like 10 cases of Bibles. Those FCA Bibles are awesome. You know that, right? And we had 10 cases of Bibles, and this guy comes up from China now, communist China. And I said, "Well, what can we do for you?" He said, "We need Bibles." And I said, "Well, won't they arrest you if I give you Bibles? And I mean, you're going to take them back on the plane?" He says, "I don't care. We need Bibles." We gave that guy all 10 of those cases of Bibles. He took them back with him to China. And now I'm reading that was 12, 15 years ago maybe. And now I'm reading that China has one of the fastest growing Christian populations in underground churches. They don't have churches, they have them in their homes.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And that taught me when I started talking about Bibles, I remember the Gideons used to come to public schools and give us Bibles.
Yep.
And now what the public in the world needs to know is the biggest giver of Bibles on the planet, FCA. We give out more Bibles than anybody.
Yeah. Well, just in West Central Georgia, we probably average 1,500 Bibles a year handing out.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
a lot of Bibles, but yeah.
It is. And guys, you know, we're talking about relationships, and we're talking about everything that has gone right with FCA. But we all know in our lives and our daily walk with God, we're going to encounter resistance. We're going to encounter some pull against us. Talk about how you guys, both of you guys, were involved in FCA, and everything didn't go perfectly. I know you've had some instances where you've had some things, some roadblocks and some potholes and things like that you've had to dodge. Talk about some of those and what you've encountered and how you kept moving forward despite those, and then what the fruit was after those.
I remember one time at I won't say which high school, but at a high school we started a huddle, and they got a new principal, and the new principal put the quietus on the huddle and said, "You can't do it." And the funny thing to me, and the affirming thing to me, was the athletic director of that school. He didn't come to the huddles, but he was the guy who called me and asked me to set up the huddle over at the school. So when the news got the principal was going to stop the huddle, he went down to the principal's office and he had the 1985 Supreme Court case, and he laid it out there, and he convinced this principal, you can't deny us a huddle. And it amused me that he was an unknown guy who stepped up, and when they were about to ban the huddle, and he just came through, and that huddle's still there, one of the best in Columbus.
How about that?
Well, Mike, I can't really speak to that from that regard. I will say that we've had really strong huddles, and a new principal comes in or a new AD comes in, and all of a sudden they're not meeting anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of we didn't challenge it, but it kind of, usually that person moved on after a year or two, that type person, and the huddles came back.
Yeah.
There's always going to be, if you stick your head above the crowd and try to do something for Jesus, there's always going to be somebody you're going to encounter.
Yeah.
That's when the mettle of our faith really kicks in.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And that, that goes for in everyday life, just walking around. If you're trying to serve God in your everyday life, spiritual warfare is real. You guys know that. I mean, y'all know it well. And, there's going to be things, little acts of sabotage, little speed bumps, little roadblocks that you're going to have to encounter every day. And nowhere in the Bible does it tell us that everything is going to be great. As a matter of fact, it tells us just the opposite. It tells us that we are going to go through hard times, and we're going to go through struggles, and we're going to have these defeats, or I call them temporary defeats, these little losses every now and then. We're going to go through that. And the difference is what we're trying to do, what you guys were trying to do with FCA, and what we try to do every day is we try to give people the answer to what they can depend on and what they can have that's going to be there when everything else fails them. What's still going to be there, and that is the presence of God in their lives, and that is the Holy Spirit guiding them, and the peace, as the Bible says, the peace that surpasses all understanding is going to be there. We talked about Coach Dimitri a little bit earlier, and I'm praying, my prayer for his family and for everybody in Harris County is that they experience that peace that surpasses all understanding in this situation. And because you're going to have those things happen. And, I know we had some things where, we had some principals or some superintendents that wouldn't let us do things with FCA, wouldn't let us have events, and they wanted to kind of stand in the way. No, we can't do that. We can't, and usually there was always a workaround, and we were able to get some things done. But
Mike, you did jog my memory. We were doing up until a couple of years ago, we were doing a student leadership conference at Columbus State University every March around spring break. And it was going really well. But the first one, when we put together, Dr. Lewis said, "Hey, give me a flyer I can send out to all the coaches so they can get the right kids to your conference and all." And we had about 300 kids come to that thing each year. Mm. And I sent him the flyer, and he said, "Looks fine." He said, "Can I just deliver them to the schools?" And he said, "Sure, go ahead." This was like on a Wednesday or Thursday. Well, Friday morning we got up and we went all over town and dropped a packet of offers, every coach in every high school. And Monday he called me and said, "I got a problem." He said, "At the top of your flyer it says praise and worship," or it said John 3:16, or it might have been 2 Timothy something. He said, "Can you remove that word from it?" I said, "Yes, sir. No problem." So I said, "You want us to go back and pull all those forms back?" And they said, "No, you can leave them there." Well, the next day he called and said, "Hey, can you take that phrase, praise and worship, off of your flyer?" And so 3 days he called me on 3 different things to remove from the flyer to make it secular. And all he was doing was pacifying the lawyers.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But society says you can't, somebody going to step up and say, "You can't do that. You can't make my kid go to praise and worship. You can't make them, listen to scripture readings and that sort of thing." So anyway, he actually came to the first one and spoke at it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And he said, "Now I do need you to do one thing." He said, "When you break out for praise and worship," which we did by the way, we plan on doing that anyway. He said, "When you do praise and worship, you need to announce that this is purely voluntary. If you don't want to do this, you can go to the back of the room, and some college kids up there will do you a 20-minute walk around on the campus, and come back. But don't just give them an option to opt out of that praise and worship part. And we did that, and it went fine. So he was very pleased with what we did, how we did it. But we had to secularize the flyer, even though it had already gone out. He didn't make us go pull the old ones back, but he had to pacify somebody in order to do that. So that's our society. Somebody out there don't want their kids to be exposed. And the beauty of this was the coaches got to choose who they wanted to send, which was usually kids that they knew would want to be a part of it anyway.
Right.
So
I got a funny story about adversity at FCA. One year, Butch Jordan, who y'all know is all volunteer out at Cascade Hills Baptist Church, been very friendly to FCA, right? So we decided that we were going to go to opening day at CSU and give out hot dogs under a tent in the parking lot and give them a tract looking, a flyer about FCA, right? So we got 200 hot dogs. We thought that'd be enough. We go to the tent. We start cooking hot dogs, smokes on campus. Kids start coming in. There's just kids everywhere lining up. We're hurrying up cooking hot dogs. And we gave out about maybe 5 hot dogs. And it just started pouring rain. I mean, a monsoon coming down. And everybody just off and leaves. And there's Butch and I standing there, 200 cooked hot dogs. We don't know what we're going to do with them, So Butch said, well, why don't you let's put them in the cooler here. And why don't you take them to the House of Mercy? They're always needing food. So it's raining. I go through the parking lot. I get soaked. I get in my old Ford pickup back in those days. I put it in the back of the truck. I drive down 2nd Avenue, House of Mercy. Drive up to the back. It's still pouring rain, booming lightning. Just, and I get these hot dogs, and I run up to the door, and I start pounding on that glass door right there. It was locked. And this guy comes up, and he looks at me, and I'm thinking, I held this up, And then he turns around and runs off. And I thought, I'm soaked, lightning bolts, I probably had this sad look on my face. And so I'm thinking, well, I'll wait to see what's going on. And they come back. About 4 or 5 guys come back. They open the door and they let me in and said, hey, we're sorry. What is it? I said, we got 200 hot dogs here. We just thought maybe you could use them, and if you can. If not, I can carry them back. And they looked at each other and smiled. And one of them said, well, you're not going to believe what just happened. We're anticipating a large crowd of men, homeless men. And we had no food, nothing. So, we're sitting there. And so we started praying. And the 5 of us, we bowed our heads. We started praying, Lord, send us food. And I said, wow. And then I woke up as we were praying. You beat on the door. And he said, but there's more. And I said, well, what is it? He says, well, while we were praying, one of the guys says, just so we can show that it's really from God, no doubt, why don't we pray for exactly what we want to eat for supper? And I looked at this guy. He was the guy that answered the door. And he says, let's pray for hot dogs. And I couldn't help but I just busted out laughing. And I said, man, don't you wish you'd prayed for T-bone steak or something? That's a true story about how God takes something bad that happens and uses it for his glory.
Isn't that amazing?
That's a true story.
Isn't that amazing that's definitely a God thing that is took care of it right there. I mean, you guys, your intent was good the whole time, and then the weather changed, but God had a purpose in that whole thing, and it was to feed a bunch of homeless men hot dogs. So you and Butch, it's like some people feel like, well, I failed. I didn't accomplish what I set out to do. But you know what? God took it and he accomplished what he set out to do. And that's what's most important. And that's what it's all about. That is what it's all about. Well, Lamar, talk about, I don't know. I know you've been involved at CSU. You've been in the dugout with them. Now you're kind of the team chaplain with softball with Coach Huskisson. But tell us a little bit more about what you're up to now. The different things that you have going on.
Well, I have two. We have two older. No, we have two daughters of age, and they both moved this summer. So I'm a handyman at two different homes. But they're both remodeling. So, but my heart is still at CSU. I stepped down about 2.5 years ago. JK's doing a great job over there. But I stayed on for about a year for a transition period. And when I did, Brad asked me to come coach with him. So I was a community coach for 2 years. And it was just too much for me. We had two grandchildren. We lost a granddaughter, 2.5 years ago, May of 23. And I really need to refocus on the family side of things. And I just couldn't. I appreciated those 2 years because it gave me purpose, that I still needed from God. But but he allowed me to stay on and just we meet weekly. I was at his practice 3 hours yesterday. He lets me do a Bible study once a week with the girls, so that's where my heart is now with family and the softball team over there. But I'm involved. I'm back in the choir at church and doing more church things than I've done in the past. So God's good. He's given me a different focus, but some of it's the same. I think that the 2 years with the softball team was good for my soul, if you will, because I was with them when Isabel passed away, and so having somewhere to go every day was good for me. But everything that happens in my life, God's there. He's in the middle of everything that happens, good and bad. So I've just been very blessed to have such a family and such good friends, Marty and Mike and Spitz and others and Brad, that just like me for who I am, and having a wonderful wife like we talked about earlier that loves me despite myself. But it's just I'm living a good life. And I have so many wonderful memories from high school to Synovus with my career there, to all the years at St. Luke and the many years with FCA, and now with the softball program, and our grandson, Marty is quite a golfer. You're going to have to come play with us sometime. He's an 8th grader at St. Luke, and he's fallen in love with the sport. So just loving life, you know what I mean? So I appreciate you guys having me, and I tell you what's real, just real, man. It's just real. Getting to do things with Vince Massey at Brookstone as a team chaplain for him, and going on missions trips with him to Honduras, taking his team 2 years, going 3 or 4 years with a group of coaches down there and doing ministry down there. And Marty, you don't remember this probably, but I called you one time out in Houston and said, if you had it all over again, what would you do different? You said, I'd be a team chaplain. Well, it's real. If there's a coach listening and you don't have a team chaplain, you're missing out, man. That's all I'll say. Doesn't have to be old gray-headed, white-headed guy like me, but it can be a young, sharp lady, or it can be anybody of any age, any gender. But you're just missing out if you don't have somebody that's pouring into them. Not that you can't, Coaches can do that, and then a lot of them do a very good job of it. But there's something different about having somebody from the outside coming in to validate the things, or just to do things that maybe the coach is not comfortable doing. A lot of coaches aren't comfortable sharing their faith. They're afraid to crossing that line, So but I would just say you're just missing out. When I first came on staff, first thing I did was drove up to Black Mountain, North Carolina, to a family camp, FCA family camp, and I was talking to a legendary football coach in North Carolina who'd won 3 state championships at three different high schools up there, and he and the other guy were debating about whether they should have a team chaplain. The other guy says, "I don't need one. I do all mine." And the other guy, the legendary guy, said, "Well," he said, if your quarterback got his girlfriend pregnant, you think he's going to tell you about that before the championship game?" He said, "I give my chaplain the authority to respond to these folks without having to tell me." He said that my kids know they can tell this chaplain anything they want to, and it won't come back to me unless it's life-threatening or a security issue. So he validated in my mind back then what the value of a true value. And I've had several friends, Marty, you have too, who've been team chaplains. Kevin Brown up at Georgia Tech. I mean, it's just a cool thing to get to hang out with it. It goes back to what we talked about earlier, Mike. You got to be present. You show up, and the more time you spend with them, the more you learn about them, the more they learn about you. The relationships go deeper and deeper, and that's when true ministry happens. I mean, just when they can trust you, that you don't have any other motive than loving on them, and so. It all comes down to relationship and loving on people, and it's just been a beautiful thing, Marty.
Yeah, well, Mark, we're so glad you came here and talked to us tonight, and you've made just such a good friend, influence on me, and I quote you. I borrow your wisdom. You've been a wonderful friend to a lot of people. But I really appreciate what you've done.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Lamar, we just, the impact, these two guys here with me tonight, the impact that they have had over the years. Yes, both of them are older than me, and they've been around a little bit longer, but the impact that you guys have had through what you've been able to do, what God's been able to accomplish through you. First of all, it started with the willingness that both of you had to be there. And to what we call the title of our podcast is Step Up. You guys were willing to step up. And that's what it takes. And Lamar, I'm going to present the question that we always present at the end of our podcast before we leave. And that is, and you can fashion this any way you want to. But a young person comes up to you and they are trying to, they're thinking about going into coaching. They're thinking about going into the ministry. They're thinking about what they're going to do as a career and how that's going to, how that plays in with their calling, so to speak, with what God has for them to do. What's some advice, and you've mentioned it a lot. You've mentioned the one word. I know you're probably going to say it again, and that's relationships. And that's usually part of every coach's answer, isn't it, Marty? That we ask this question to is building relationships. But what's some advice you would give a young person who's maybe a young coach, or maybe wants to go into administration, or maybe wants to do something similar, if not FCA, something similar to FCA in a ministry type situation like that? What are some pointers you would give them?
Well, John Maxwell said the two most important days in your life are when you're born and when you figure out why. And if you
Yep.
find out your why, then the rest will take care of itself. And that's just really, that's between you and God, and letting and following his lead, being obedient enough to where he will reveal what his will for your life is. And when he does, follow that lead. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, and I can't give you earthly advice, but if you, I mean, we're all just busy. I mean, I pity these athletes, but we raised an athlete just like you did, Marty, and Mike, you probably did too.
Mm-hmm.
We raised athletes, and we know what kind of pressure's on them: social pressure, performance pressure, academic pressure, all of the above. And a lot of them they're drinking from a fire hose, like I did when I was at Synovus and working 78-hour weeks. We're drinking from a fire hose. They don't think they have time for God. And we had this discussion the other night with the softball team. It's fixing to get crazy because we're heading out of town next week, and we're going to play 60 games in 30 or 41 days, or something like that. And we may not get to meet as much as we are right now. What do we do? And I said, you gotta stay connected to the source. Mm-hmm. Every day. You gotta stay connected to the source and rely on God on everything you do. And if it's in the middle of a ball game, or if it's in the middle of a dinner you're having with your boyfriend or something, you got to stay connected and listen to God. And you got to find your quiet place. You just got to find, everybody's got to have their prayer closet, quiet place, whatever you call it. And God, if you will listen, if you'll be quiet long enough and pray hard enough, and you listen, he'll reveal what he wants you to do. He'll direct your every step. And God, wonderful, great. We all know, I mean, lives are transformed by the power of the Holy Spirit. And you got to listen to the Holy Spirit and listen for it, And so you got to be tuned in, just like plugging a phone in, to a charger. If you don't stay charged up, it's not going to work. If you don't stay connected to the Holy Spirit and to God and to Jesus Christ, your life is going to spiral. It just is. Mm-hmm. So that's long version, I guess, but
absolutely it was 100% on point, and exactly what I was thinking you would say and hoping you would say, and exactly what God wanted you to say in this situation right there, for sure. Well, Marty, Lamar, we've come to the end of our time, and folks, if you're watching with us tonight and this week, make sure you share this podcast with people. Get the word out, put it around. We're still growing. We're still working on this thing every week. We're going to have some great guests coming up, and Lamar was just the first of many that are coming up, and we want you to be involved. We want your feedback. We're on social media at Step Up, Make a Difference, the podcast. You can find us on Instagram. I think you can find us on Facebook. You can find us several different places. Look us up, follow us, follow this podcast on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, and give us comments, give us feedback. If you've got people you want to see on here, suggestions you want to make about guests that we can have, please send them to us. And it's not limited to the Chattahoochee Valley area here in Alabama and Georgia. We want to go nationwide. We want to have guests from all over the place. And we want to get more exposure for this because Marty and I believe that God laid this on our hearts to do. This is what we're trying to be obedient. We're trying to get this done, and we're trying to get this out there, and y'all can help us do that. And but the most important thing that you can do is be willing to step up and make a difference. Right, guys?
Right.
Right.
And just be willing. If God puts something in front of you, and you may think it's too big, you may think it's too much, you may think you're not qualified. Look at Moses. Moses had a speech impediment, and he killed a man. But look what God did with him. back in the Old Testament, leading the children of Israel. God will use anybody, anywhere, anytime. All that person's got to do is be willing to allow God to use them. And we hope that you will, and we hope that you'll be willing to step up. So until next week, Lamar, thank you so much for being with us. Marty, stay safe up there in the snow and ice and whatever is going to go on up in North Georgia. And all of us need to try to stay warm the next couple of days, because it don't matter where we are. It's going to be cold, very cold. Again, thank everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next week on